When Shinji Ikari was 4 years old, his mother Yui disappeared during an experiment with Evangelion Unit 1. Her body dissolved and her soul was absorbed into the giant mecha. Instead of raising his son alone, Gendo Ikari simply abandoned him. Gendo sent 4-year-old Shinji to live with a teacher. For the next 11 years, Gendo barely saw his son. They only met a few times during those years, like when they visited Yui's grave together. Shinji grew up essentially without a father. When Shinji turned 14, Gendo finally contacted him. But it wasn't because he missed his son or wanted to reconnect. The letter Gendo sent was almost completely blank except for 2 handwritten words, "Come," and his signature. That was it. No explanation, no warmth, just a cold order. Gendo only called Shinji back because he needed him. Giant monsters called angels were attacking, and someone had to pilot Unit 1 to fight them. Yui's soul inside Unit 1 had chosen Shinji as its pilot, so Gendo had no choice but to use his son. Throughout the series, Gendo treats Shinji like a tool rather than a person. He never offers encouragement or praise. He doesn't try to build a relationship. When Shinji struggles with the trauma of piloting or tries to quit, Gendo shows no concern for his mental health. He just needs Shinji to keep piloting. Gendo's actual goal the entire time was causing Third Impact. This wasn't about saving humanity from the angels. He wanted to trigger Third Impact so he could reunite with Yui's soul inside Unit 1. He didn't care what happened to the rest of the world, including his own son. Gendo puts his plan into motion. He tries to merge with Rei Ayanami, who contains the soul of Lilith, to control Third Impact on his terms. But Rei betrays him because she senses Shinji's pain. She gives control to Shinji instead. Shinji ends up being the one who triggers Third Impact. The event causes massive destruction across Earth. All of humanity is turned into a collective consciousness, though Shinji eventually rejects this and allows people to return to their individual forms if they choose. Grisha YEAGER came from outside the walls in a place called Marley. He was part of a group trying to restore the Eldian people to their former glory. After his group was captured and most were killed, a man named Aaron Kruger gave Grisha the power of the attack titan. Kruger's mission for Grisha was clear: infiltrate the walls, find the Rice family who held the founding titan, and steal that power. Grisha spent years inside the walls living as a doctor. He married a woman named Carla and had a son named Aaron. For a while, he seemed to give up on his mission because he didn't want to destroy his new family. He even found where the founding titan was, but chose not to take it yet. Everything changed the day Wall Maria fell. Giant titans broke through and destroyed Shiganshin district. Grisha's wife Carla was eaten by a titan right in front of young Aaron. After the attack, Grisha found Aaron among the refugees. Instead of comforting his traumatized son, Grisha took him into the forest alone. He gave Aaron a key to their basement and told him the memories would teach him everything. Then Grisha injected Aaron with a titan serum. The serum turned 10-year-old Aaron into a mindless pure titan. In this state, Aaron had no control over his actions. Grisha then allowed his own son to eat him alive. This is how titan powers transfer. The new titan eats the old one. When Aaron woke up, he had no memory of what happened. He didn't remember eating his father. For the next 5 years, Aaron had strange gaps in his memory and didn't understand he had titan powers inside him. Here's what makes this even worse. Grisha had gone to the Rice family earlier that same day and stolen the founding titan by killing almost all of them. So when Aaron ate Grisha, he inherited both the attack titan and the founding titan. Grisha loaded his 10-year-old son with 2 of the most powerful titan abilities and all the horrible memories that came with them. The attack titan has a special ability. It can see memories from future inheritors. This means Grisha could see some of what Aaron would do in the future. Later in the series, we learned that future Aaron actually manipulated his own father through these memories. When Grisha hesitated to kill the Rice children, Aaron from the future pushed him to do it by reminding him of past traumas. So Grisha knew, at least partially, what kind of dark path Aaron would walk. He knew the burden he was placing on his son. He even begged his other son Zeke to stop Aaron. But despite knowing all this, Grisha still went through with turning Aaron into a titan and having him inherit these powers. Grisha forced his 10-year-old son to eat him, gave him 2 titan powers, passed on traumatic memories of murder and loss, and set him on a path toward causing massive destruction, all on the worst day of Aaron's life, right after watching his mother die. SHOU Tucker was known as the Sewing Life Alchemist because he created the first chimera that could understand human speech. A chimera is a creature made by fusing 2 different living things together using alchemy. This achievement earned him his state alchemist certification and a comfortable life funded by the military. What nobody knew was how Tucker actually made that first talking chimera. 2 years before Edward and Alphonse Elric met him, Tucker had used his own wife for the experiment. He fused her with an animal to create the talking chimera. After the experiment, his wife as a chimera eventually died from malnutrition because she stopped eating. Tucker told everyone, including his young daughter Nina, that his wife had left them. Nobody questioned it because he was a respected state alchemist. Years later, Ed and Al came to study at Tucker's house. They spent time with Nina, who was around 4 or 5 years old, and her large dog Alexander. Nina was a sweet, cheerful kid who loved playing with her dog and called the Elric brothers Big Brother. The 3 of them became friends over several days. Tucker was worried because his annual state alchemist assessment was coming up. If he didn't show new results, he would lose his certification and his funding. Without any new research, Tucker made a terrible decision. He fused Nina and Alexander together to create another talking chimera. When Ed and Al returned to Tucker's house, they found him with a new chimera that could speak. At first, they congratulated him, but something felt wrong. The chimera looked at Edward and said, "Big brother," in a pained voice. That's when Ed realized the horrible truth. The chimera was Nina and Alexander combined. Tucker had used his own daughter and her dog for his experiment, just like he'd done with his wife years earlier. Ed was furious and nearly beat Tucker to death. He couldn't believe someone would do this to their own child just to keep a job. But the damage was already done. The transformation couldn't be reversed. Nina was permanently stuck in that form. The military arrested Tucker and put him under house arrest with the Nina chimera. But before he could face trial, a serial killer named Scar broke into Tucker's house. Scar killed Tucker for his crimes. Then he killed the Nina chimera too, which was actually a mercy because there was no way to change her back to normal. Tucker chose his career over his family twice. He sacrificed his wife and then his daughter, turning them both into monsters just so he could keep his state alchemist position and the money that came with it. Enji Todoroki, known as the hero Endeavor, was obsessed with becoming the #1 hero and surpassing All Might. But he realized he couldn't beat All Might with his own power alone. His quirk, Hellflame, let him create and control fire, but using it too much would cause his body to overheat. So Endeavor came up with a different plan. He entered into what's called a quirk marriage with a woman named Rei Himura. This practice involves marrying someone specifically for their quirk to create genetically superior children. It's considered taboo and unethical in their society, but it wasn't illegal. Rei had an ice-based quirk. Endeavor's goal was simple: have a child who inherited both his fire powers and her ice powers. That way, the child could use ice to cool down their body and avoid the overheating problem. Then Endeavor could train this perfect child to surpass All Might. They had 4 children. The first was Toya, who had an even stronger fire quirk than Endeavor. But Toya's body couldn't handle the heat. He inherited his mother's resistance to cold instead of resistance to fire. This made his quirk extremely dangerous to himself. Endeavor initially trained Toya, but stopped when he realized the boy's body would burn itself. Their second and third children, Fuyumi and Natsuo, both inherited ice-type quirks. These weren't what Endeavor wanted, so he basically ignored them and kept trying. Finally, their 4th child, Shoto, was born with exactly what Endeavor wanted: half cold, half hot. The right side of his body could create ice, and the left side could create fire. Shoto was the perfect successor. From age 4, Endeavor put Shoto through brutal training. He isolated Shoto from his siblings and pushed him to his absolute limits every single day. When Rei tried to protect Shoto or interfere with the training, Endeavor would physically assault her. The abuse wasn't just toward Shoto, it was the entire family. The constant abuse eventually broke Rei mentally. One day, she saw Shoto's left side, the fire side that reminded her of Endeavor, and had a complete breakdown. She poured boiling water on the left side of Shoto's face, leaving a permanent scar over his eye. After this incident, Rei was placed in a mental hospital where she stayed for years. Meanwhile, Toya felt completely abandoned. Endeavor had stopped training him and focused everything on Shoto. This rejection, combined with Toya's unstable quirk, led to a horrible incident where Toya was caught in flames and presumed dead. He actually survived and eventually became the villain Dabi, but that's revealed much later in the series. Endeavor treated his family like a eugenics experiment. When the results weren't perfect, he discarded those children and tried again. He destroyed his wife's mental health, traumatized all his children, and created at least one villain in the process, all because he was too obsessed with beating All Might to care about being an actual father. Ging FREECSS was 20 years old when his son Gon was born. When Gon was around 2 years old, Ging left him with his cousin Mito FREECSS and his grandmother on Whale Island. Then he just left to pursue his career as a hunter and never came back. Mito actually took Ging to court and gained official custody of Gon. But here's the thing, Ging didn't fight it. He let it happen because he wanted to continue his adventures and didn't want to raise his son. For the next 10 years, Gon grew up believing his father had abandoned him. When Gon became a hunter and started looking for his father, Ging left him a recorded message. The message was on a cassette tape with special Nen abilities that would erase itself if stopped mid-play. In the recording, Ging said he was ashamed to face Gon because he had abandoned him for his own selfish reasons. But instead of actually meeting his son, the message basically said, "Find me if you still want to see me." Ging created a video game called Greed Island, which only hunters could play. There's evidence suggesting he designed parts of it specifically with Gon in mind, like a training ground. He even told one of the game's characters, Razor, to fight Gon seriously when they met. So Ging was watching Gon's progress but still refused to meet him face to face. After Gon beat Greed Island, the game gave him a way to find Ging's location. But even then, Ging avoided him. He knew Gon was coming and made sure he wouldn't be there. Later, during the chairman election arc, Gon finally tracked down where Ging would be. But Ging still wouldn't make it easy. He was at the top of the world tree, which is the tallest tree in the world. Gon had to climb all the way up just to have a conversation with his father. They finally met at the top of the world tree. This was the first real conversation Gon had with his father that he could remember. Ging explained that he became a hunter to find new things and go on adventures with his friends. That was more important to him than raising his son. Throughout the entire series, Ging put Gon through dangerous situations and tests. Greed Island was filled filled with deadly challenges. Gon nearly died multiple times trying to find his father, and when they finally met, it was only because Gon did all the work to track him down and literally climbed a tree that reaches close to the atmosphere. Medusa Gorgon is a witch and a scientist who views people as test subjects for her experiments. She had a child named Krona specifically to use in her research on madness and creating the ultimate weapon. Krona's father is never mentioned in the series. When Krona was just a toddler, Medusa performed a horrific experiment. She completely drained all of Krona's human blood from their body. Then she replaced it with something she created called black blood, a substance mixed with madness that she invented as part of her research. Black blood wasn't the only thing she put in Krona. Medusa took a demon weapon named Ragnarok and melted him down. She mixed the melted Ragnarok into the black blood and injected everything into Krona's body. This fused Ragnarok permanently into Krona, making them inseparable. From early childhood, Medusa forced Krona to kill small animals. She even made a picture book that showed Krona how to kill baby rabbits. If Krona refused to follow her orders or failed to do what she wanted, the punishment was severe. She would lock Krona in a completely dark room for 5 days straight without any food. On top of Medusa's abuse, Ragnarok constantly bullied Krona. He would pull Krona's hair, threaten them, and verbally abuse them non-stop. Ragnarok could manifest physically and would beat Krona down emotionally every single day. These were the only two people in Krona's entire childhood. Medusa's goal was to condition Krona to be compatible with madness. She wanted to turn Krona into a Kishin, which is basically a god of madness and the most evil type of being in their world. To do this, Krona needed to have Ragnarok consume many innocent human souls. The more souls Ragnarok ate, the stronger and more mad Krona would become. Medusa sent Krona out to kill people and collect souls. When Krona hesitated or showed any resistance, Medusa would use magic to remove their inhibitions and force them to obey. She had complete control over Krona through fear, manipulation, and literal mind control. Later in the series, when Krona made friends at the DWMA school and started to feel happiness for the first time, Medusa tracked them down. She manipulated Krona into betraying their new friends by playing on their guilt and fear. Then she erased all of Krona's memories of their friends and the DWMA to make Krona unstable again. Medusa never showed any actual maternal love. Even when she claimed to care about Krona, it was only when Krona became useful as a weapon or showed progress in spreading madness. She viewed her own child purely as an experiment and a tool. The series directly states that Medusa has an inability to truly understand the concept of love. She treated Krona worse than a lab rat. At least scientists don't typically torture lab animals for fun. Everything Krona suffered was calculated to break their mind and turn them into a monster. RAGYO KIRYUIN married scientist Soichiro KIRYUIN for one reason only: to exploit his research expertise. She had no interest in love or building a family. Her goal was singular: fuse human beings with alien parasites called life fibers to create the perfect hybrid organism. When their first daughter Satsuki turned 1 year old, RAGYO began her experiments. She attempted to infuse Satsuki's body with life fibers, but the process failed. Satsuki's physiology had already developed too far. The window for successful fusion had closed. RAGYO's solution was clinical and calculated. She would have another child and begin the process immediately after birth, before the infant's biology could reject the life fibers. When her second daughter was born, RAGYO wasted no time. She performed the experiment on the newborn immediately. The procedure appeared to fail once again. Rather than verify the results, RAGYO abandoned the infant, assuming she was dead, but the baby was alive. Soichiro secretly rescued his daughter, named her Ryuko, and raised her far from RAGYO's reach. Back at the KIRYUIN estate, Satsuki's childhood became a nightmare. RAGYO subjected her to constant psychological torment and physical brutality. These weren't training exercises or scientific observations. RAGYO treated her own daughter as nothing more than a test subject, a thing to be studied and manipulated. Every day reinforced the same message. Satsuki was not a person, she was an experiment. This abuse continued for years, shaping Satsuki into someone who lived for one purpose: to eventually destroy her mother. Years later, RAGYO discovered the truth. Ryuko was alive. When they finally met, RAGYO attacked her own daughter with lethal force to prove the life fiber fusion had actually succeeded all those years ago. After confirming Ryuko's hybrid nature, RAGYO didn't stop there. She invaded Ryuko's mind, filling it with fabricated memories, and forcibly bonded her daughter to a parasitic uniform called Junketsu, a garment that would control and dominate its wearer. When Soichiro finally moved against RAGYO's plans, her response was immediate. She ordered his execution without a moment's hesitation. He had become an obstacle, nothing more. In the final battle, when RAGYO realized she had lost everything, she refused to accept defeat. She chose to fall on her own terms rather than be captured. Even in death, she smiled at Ryuko and made a promise: the life fibers would eventually return to consume the earth. Throughout everything, RAGYO only showed affection when her daughters became weapons she could use. She had no maternal instinct, no genuine love. To RAGYO KIRYUIN, her children were never people. They were experiments and tools, nothing more. If you like this video, turn on the notification bell and subscribe for more.